Okay, so this is gonna be my last video on the Presocratics for a while. I need to I don't think I can do a video on the atomists like Democritus and Leucippus yet because I haven't studied them enough. I would like to study them more, and then I might make a video in the near to distant future. I'm not sure when, but I'm not very good at the atomists yet. So we're gonna do a video on Zeno. Zeno was a pupil of Parmenides, and he was the paradox guy. You will read about Zeno in many of Plato's dialogues. Zeno is in a lot of his dialogues. Zeno is kind of almost, I would almost call him similar to Socrates because he's the paradox guy. He has a lot of paradoxes of common sense, which kind of makes you think, oh well, if you give him a question, it's like, oh yeah, it'd be this, easy, whatever. But then basically Zeno basically like, well, no, what about this and this, and then be like, oh, I don't know. Basically brings you back to not knowing anything, kind of like Socrates would do. So I love Zeno. Zeno has tons of different paradoxes of thought that I want to get into and sort of talk about here. But there's only a few that I want to discuss here right now. And I guess why are these things a paradox of common sense? Because common sense would be, oh well, it just be this, in simple answer. And if Zeno can bring us to like knowing nothing about a certain question, then what is wrong with our what is wrong with our common sense? To if we thinking, oh, it's just this, when there's really a real issue with this. So the first one I want to discuss is the one of Achilles and the tortoise. I'm going to read from Melchard here. This is the book of the great conversation. It's an intro to philosophy book. Suppose Achilles were to. So this is about Achilles and the tortoise. Suppose Achilles were to enter a race with a tortoise, and Achilles lets the tortoise have a place ahead of him, and then they'll both start. So you're gonna suppose, oh, Achilles will catch him at some point. So when Achilles begins to run, the tortoise is already going down the way and being in like a laborious sort of like moving state, and Achilles has to catch in. Suppose that where the tortoise has this head start is called point A, and Achilles has to catch the tortoise in order to win. However, the tortoise keeps moving, and you would think, well, he'll just he's faster. He'll just catch him, and he'll win. Not that simple. In order to catch him, Achilles must first reach that point. That seems obvious. By the time Achilles has reached A, however, the tortoise has moved onto some further point B. That also seems obvious. So Achilles needs to race to point B. He does so. Of course, by the time Achilles has attained B, the tortoise is at C. So it goes on and on and on, and Achilles will never really catch him. So that's a paradox there, because how's he gonna catch him? And it seems like, well, Achilles is this big, demigod. How's he not going to catch a slow, huge tortoise? So much for all that training for Achilles. So, and they have the paradox of the air with flight. We're not gonna discuss that one. So, the Achilles and the tortoise. That's one big paradox where you might think, oh, simple answer. But no, it's just like going like this the whole time. Achilles is never going to catch him. So another paradox is the paradox. The Sorites paradox is not one that Zeno. I don't think Zeno has really used this one. But the Sorites paradox is a paradox in metaphysics, which I kind of want to discuss here. Suppose you have a bean. You have a little bean. You have a huge bag of beans. You put one bean down, another down, more and more and more. So when is it that you have a huge pile of beans, like a huge stack pile of beans, and when you have only a few? Where's the limit? Where's the point? Where's the line where you have between where you have a small little few here and a huge pile? that's kind of an issue. Another one that Zeno discusses is the midpoint paradox. I forget what that is. I should probably have done that, but I think it's like where he draws a line and he has one in the middle, and then one in the middle again, and you keep dividing those lines. Yeah, it's that you have a line, you like have a thing in the middle, and then you divide that one, and then you divide that one. You keep going down. When will you reach the end of the line? You really never will for infinity. It's kind of like the concept in higher level math of the limit. Say you have a hyperbole, or not a hyperbole, hyperbola, and you have a asymptote and an asymptote, and this little curve is gonna approach zero at some point, right? No, it won't. It's gonna keep going closer and closer to zero, and we'll never actually get there. Same thing with this midpoint thing. Keep dividing it. The midpoint will the midpoint of each thing will never actually reach the end of that line, ever. So, and he talks about what the idea of a valid argument is, and the reductio ad absurdum partly came from Zeno. And what is the reductio ad absurdum? It's reduction to absurdity. It is a kind of argument where you are trying to make a point, or trying to argue something by basically which are basically trying to reduce the converse to being a absurd conjecture. And I want to do a different video about that soon. But Zeno, I could talk about forever because he has many different cool little paradoxes. So if you think I messed this up, or should have done a different paradox, or should have done a certain one that I did better, comment below, let me know. And if you have anything else to say about Zeno, let me know. And I'll probably do animism at some point in the future.